What made you decide to increase your investment in this company to 38% from 10%?
Yeah, well, we think that, certainly the cannabis industry is poised for tremendous growth. You look at what the projections are around cannabis, it's expected to be over a $200 billion business by the year 2030. And in the U.S. alone, the business is currently in legal markets $8 billion, and including the black market, probably something around $55 billion. So we're in the beverage alcohol business. Obviously, this is the first opportunity for an aligned and complementary type thing since Prohibition. In fact, This is sort of the end of a type of prohibition, at least on cannabis. So we see it as a tremendous opportunity to add to our portfolio and really create a fourth leg that can provide tremendous growth for the company for the future.
Rob, given that, were you surprised by the fact that shares of your company dropped more than 6% today in response to the news?
Well, not necessarily. First of all, the market is very volatile today in particular, and has been for the last couple of days for unrelated reasons. We expected to see perhaps some turnover in our investor base. This is not a simple thing necessarily to understand. It doesn't just lend itself to, DCFing the value the way that other things in ongoing businesses or businesses that aren't as nascent as this our investors and analysts are able to understand. So we thought that would be the case, but on the other hand, we think that there are investors who understand the strategy, who see the future in this, and also understand how complementary this is with our core business. And I think, one thing to understand is that our core business is extremely strong. We fully expect our core business to meet all guidance that we've given on that business this year. You only need to look at IRI and our Corona and Modelo family sales to see that that business is extremely strong. So this is all about adding a complementary fourth leg to the stool.
Right, and you're not alone in investing in cannabis. Molson, Coors, Lagunitas, they've all also been investing in the cannabis industry. How important is pot to the future of the beer business?
Well, that's an interesting question in that, all the statistics, especially in the United States and states where cannabis is legal, basically don't show any degradation in the beverage alcohol business as a consequence of cannabis being legal. And so, our view is the worst you can say or the best you can say right now is that it appears to be complementary to the beverage alcohol business. We've got a very strong beverage alcohol business, probably the strongest in the world for that matter. And as I said, I think that this is a fourth leg to the stool that's very complementary to what we do.
So you now own 38% of Canopy Growth. When will you decide whether or not you're going to buy the entire company?
Well, that's not a decision that we expect to make in the short term. We've taken our interest up to 38%. As part of this deal, we also have warrants that enable us to take our interest up to 55%. And, I think that given the prospects here, that's a very large ownership interest in what we expect to become the global leader in cannabis. Obviously, we bought the shares from the company. The $4 billion U.S. investment that we're making goes into the company and really creates a war chest that can be used to greatly accelerate Canopy's ability to become truly the dominant global player in cannabis.
Yeah.
At the same time, you look at Constellation, we're brand builders. We have some of the strongest brands literally in the world. we can bring that expertise to Canopy in particular, because in the end, like almost every other category, the real value is going to be in the creation of the brand.
Yeah.
And so that's a very important element of this.
Rob, how much was your purchase hinged on cannabis becoming legal in the United States? In other words, how much would you have reconsidered the purchase here of Canopy if you knew that the U.S. was never going to legalize marijuana?
Yeah, so, the acquisition isn't premised on the U.S. becoming legal. I fully think, and I'll get into some of the details of that the U.S., we will see decriminalization of it at the federal level, and we believe that it'll become a states' rights kind of thing, meaning it'll be left up to the states to decide whether it's legal in the states. But this investment stands on its own just in Canada and just in the rest of the world, or I should say just in Canada or just in the rest of the world. There's 30 countries outside the United States that are in the process in one form or another of legalizing cannabis.
Yeah.
As you know, October 17th, Canada is legalizing cannabis recreationally, and either one of those two things justifies the value that we've invested, even without the U.S. That said, I believe that we'll see decriminalization and declassification of cannabis as a Class 1 drug, sometime in the very near future. There's 3 bills, and almost all politicians on both parties are talking about some form of decriminalization and leaving it up to the states.